Derby County are reportedly chasing the signing of England youth international Bobby Clark. Bobby Clark came through at the Liverpool Academy and has since made the move to RB Salzburg in the Austrian First Division. Now, for me, Bobby Clark is a player who Derby County would greatly need to improve the squad, and a player who I believe could have a real impact for Derby County. Now, he signed for RB Salzburg back in August of 2024 and was a player on the list for Derby County and someone that's been linked with us over the course of the last few years. Now, ultimately, this transfer certainly won't be a permanent one, and if it is to be a permanent one, it's not going to be one which Derby County can afford. However, with the increasingly likely sale of Erin Cashin in the works, it could maybe be a deal which Derby County could actually work on. And for me, it's one which I don't quite think Bobby Clark would want to join Derby County permanently. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. Now, he is just 19 years old and obviously has a long career ahead of him. And obviously making the move to Austria this season hasn't quite gone to plan, making only 19 appearances, playing 971 minutes this season. It sort of isn't quite where he thought his career was going to take off to. Now, over the course of his career, obviously, he was at Newcastle's academy, then went to Liverpool, where he sort of really made a name for himself, and then went to RB Salzburg, where he's been this season. And he's made 107 appearances across senior and youth appearances, 20 goals, 17 assists, and 7,142 minutes played. And if we go across his positions, he's mainly a central midfielder, but can sort of play anywhere within that attacking element of the pitch. Can play on the right, the left, and through the middle. Mainly, though, I'd say sort of that more creative-minded number 8. Sort of really what Kenzo Holdmine is, although we don't particularly play Kenzo in that position, which I think is just a waste of Kenzo Holdmine. Now, for me, this player, Bobby Clark, is a player who could have a massive impact for Derby County, but it's starting to feel a little bit like a Billy Sharp, a David McGoldrick, a David Nugent, like a player that we seem to be linked with every transfer window, and we'll probably be linked with him every window of his career until he's too good for us. Because we had it with Billy Sharp, we had it with David McGoldrick for a few years, we had it with David Nugent until we ended up signing him once he was past his peak. And it's one of those for me where he is a really good player and he could do serious good for Derby County. And I think if you look at our midfield, he is literally the type of player we are missing, in my opinion. Yes, we've spoke recently about Dan Barlasa and other players like that. Oscar Frullo, a deal which looks to have sort of shut itself down over the last few days. But Bobby Clark is sort of that creative-minded number 8, a little bit further forward, can have a bit more of an impact on the play. And we look at players like Kenzo, who we've brought in, and this is one of the reasons why I think those types of players, you look at an Oscar Frullo who's apparently said he didn't want to come to Derby, you look at a Kenzo and you look at it and you go, well, hang on a minute, why are these technical midfielders going to want to come and play for us with the way we play football? A lot of the time they're just watching the ball go over their head, or it's going to the side of them, either side of them, and they're not really getting a touch of the ball, not really being able to make things happen. And you especially look at Kenzo, who's more of that creative-minded 8 as well as Bobby Clark, and his best performances came in a midfield 3 with Ibu Adams, David Ozo and Kenzo Holdmine. And obviously Kenzo was that furthest forward in that sort of selection of midfielders, and I think he scored twice, got 2 assists within 3 or 4 games. And then Ozo gets injured, it completely changes the shape of things. And if Bobby Clark has been watching Derby County or watched a single Derby County game, I don't think there's anything that he's going to look at that's going to go, you know what, I'm going to enjoy playing for Paul Warne, I'm going to enjoy playing for that team. Now, don't get me wrong, Paul has got some excellent man management which could ultimately get a player like Bobby Clark through the door, but that man management isn't necessarily going to have him being happy at the style of play and the way we're playing, and is going to have to do a lot of grovelling to get a player like this through the door. And a lot of people say, well, if he doesn't want to come, don't sign him. Well, of course, no shit, Sherlock, he wouldn't come. But it's one of those for me where I think that a player with this talent, we've seen it with Louis Barry. Obviously, a lot of people are going to say, where are we even in for him, blah, blah, blah. But realistically, I think every club in the Championship would have put an offer in for Louis Barry. He didn't want to come. We spoke about Tom Lawrence a couple of days ago. Now, unless Derby are doing some amazing foreshadowing over on Twitter and Instagram and things like that, and sort of hinting at a potential return, we probably won't see Tom Lawrence come back, not only because of wages, but also because those technical, proper, attacking-minded players ultimately don't really get the opportunity to shine in this Paul Warne system and setup. Now, in my opinion, a player like Tom Lawrence probably has more opportunity of shining than Bobby Clark because he's a wide player. And that's why I get really frustrated when we play Mendes Lang and Caden Jackson, and we've not upgraded them since coming into the division, because neither of them really seem to have that edge to go at a man to make things happen. And that's why you want a player like a Tom Lawrence, like a Bobby Clark, like a Louis Barry, who isn't afraid to go at their man, will shoot from 25 yards and will make things happen. Brilliant on set pieces, those sorts of things. And we just don't seem to have that at Derby County right now. And obviously, for me, you have to talk about Bobby Clark in the sense of what he's going to be. Now, ultimately, it's not quite gone to plan at RB Salzburg. 5 appearances in the Champions League, 2 appearances in the OFB Cup, and 12 appearances in the Bundesliga. And don't get me wrong, I do think he's a very good player, and I think if Derby were to sign him, I think he'd have an amazing impact. But it's one of those where, is he really someone who we can slot straight in straight away that's on confidence, on form? Now, we're not going to get players on confidence and on form, and that's why we're looking at players like Dan Barlaser. It's why those sorts of players are coming to us. And obviously, the big discussion around it will be how can Derby County make a deal like this happen? It would have to be a loan deal for starters. And yes, we do have a loan spot available. Obviously, you look at Oscar Frulo, that was going to be a loan. Now, I don't necessarily think there's any chance of this being permanent, obviously, because a really good player, RB Salzburg, I'm not entirely sure what they paid for him in the summer. That would actually be really intriguing to find out, but I imagine it won't be anything. I imagine it'll be like 5, 6, 7 million. That would be my guess. Maybe a little bit more than that, really. Maybe sort of into the tens of millions. And I don't think Derby County would be able to sort of give up that sort of money, or even if Derby have that sort of money, because if they do, what's the situation with Paul Warne? Why is he still in charge and things like that? But it's interesting because I do think he could have a massive impact for Derby County. I do think he could go into that midfield and instantly add an extra option. You could, instead of have 2 sitting midfielders, you could then go with 2 creative players, and then you create a completely different ball game in midfield where you can go through the middle. Ultimately, I don't necessarily think Paul Warne would do that, and I think sort of the element across the course of the fan base at the moment is that Derby County probably wouldn't sort of be able to pick up a player like this. And a lot of people are saying that he necessarily probably wouldn't join Derby County and things like that, and they're probably not wrong, because the style of play ultimately is going to be one which is going to cause some problems. A player who is hoping to eventually be in the England setup, a player who is hopefully going to be sort of pushing on to be sort of the next big thing, and obviously at 20 years old there is still the opportunity that he can do that, but it's not going to happen in a Paul Warne system, in my opinion. There's not many players who can really sort of shine in this system. Don't get me wrong, you did really well with, obviously, Mendes Lang in League One, put in some fairly decent performances, but ultimately there wasn't really sort of a great deal of competition for him, and that's where my sort of problem comes in. Is Mendes Lang never sort of had to battle against anybody. He never sort of had that competition in a wide area or something that were really better than him, and that's why I was always disappointed with Derby County finishing second in the league, because ultimately I think we had the players capable of going and winning that league quite comfortably. So it's one of those. Obviously, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. If you have not done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell to stay tuned for all of my latest Derby County content coming your way. Later on today, we will have a Derby County versus Sheffield United match preview. Obviously, it's a big game for Derby County, not just in a sense of the relegation zone, but also in the sense of stopping that losing run. We'll be able to do it at home. We'll head into that in the next video. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell, and I'll catch you in my next video.